Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Part three and the final part of this awesome voyage with me and my brother Subtle Infinity, where we diving into the human, Mother Nature, and the cosmos. We just gonna pretty much summarize all of these topics, drive them home. So if you're looking at the screen now, when we dealing with the Antarctic ice ring, and we talk about as above, so below. We have a circle entrance at the center of the earth, and we're surrounded by circles. So this is as above, so below, if you ask me too. With the bill on this, one way I saw this playing out was that maybe our cosmos is made the way you see here in the top left.
Yeah, I just like questioning the reality from like you were saying, the as above, so below perspective, and really going into interpreting body. So we have the human body, the physical body, the higher mind, and then you have the soul, in reference to the solid, the liquid, and the gas, how I'm seeing it. My thing is if we start to understand the alchemy of the human body, it's like tracing our origins backwards from the inside out. So if we start questioning our reality on the individual perspective, it'll inherently open us up to interpreting what the earth body really is. So we can start, in one way, if not answering questions about what's going on with the infinite plane, more bodies of land, other parts of the infinite realm, the dome, what the dome is made of, what the stars represent, what the so-called planets or the light bodies represent. Like all of this stuff has it, how I see it in my head when I think about all this stuff and how it fits together. It's like a big math problem or a big science project, or that you have all of these elements that are a part of a big equation. So we have all of these parts of this equation that are available to us, and we have deeper understandings of when you start to question, for example, the heliocentric model. So when you start to question the heliocentric model and you see, well, there aren't actual, like the CGI images that we are sold, the CGI images that are sold to us as physical spheroids in the heliocentric universe, they don't exist like that. So you actually get a telescope and you look closer and you can see that there's a light body there, that, or some kind of light energy, and what looks like some kind of water or some kind of or movement, like a relationship between light and water. So you have light, you have water, and then you have movement. And then you have you as the experiencer observing that. Then you have the movement of the planets, the movement of the stars, the all these seasons. We have all of these parts of the equations. And if we focus our energy and on the information at hand, and we start like piecing together what it is that we know from basic observations, and just put it on the board and observe it for what it is. If we see it for what it is from what we've gathered so far, we can start answering the questions without having to, the questions that aren't there yet, if we start putting pieces of the equation together from an alchemical eye instead of only a scientific eye. So if we start looking at this storyline from the human perspective, or from even a soul perspective, then you can start answering questions that we didn't really see were available to us, because we didn't know that they existed, because we were looking from solely a scientific perspective. And that's what I see is a lot, is part of a lot of the reasons, or not the reasons, but what's going on within the so-called flat earth community is heavily focused on either revealing or unveiling the lies of the heliocentric deception, which is just obvious at this point now. And then on the other side, it's focused on the, you know, the just scientific version of reality. The closest that we get into the other than the scientific, not saying that there's anything wrong with that, but the closest we get to and other than the other side of alchemy, other than scientific perspective into the spiritual realm, are the ancestral interpretations, like the Mayan cosmology, the Inca cosmology, the Nordic cosmology, the Hindu cosmology. All of these cosmologies, the thing that I'm saying, that there's information existing that's part of this equation, is within the actual perspectives, within those actual cosmologies, within the cosmology of the Mayan cosmology, within the Aztec cosmology, within the Inca and the Hopi cosmology. That's all information there. They have an understanding of nature. Like the Hopi are still dancing today. They still do dances throughout the year. They've never lost their relationship with the harmonics of the earth realm. They're constantly on the oldest, and I think they might be one, if not the oldest civilization, or at least one of the oldest civilizations in North America. And they've never lost track of their spiritual and so-called scientific understandings, or their cosmological understandings of this reality. Asking questions about those realities and seeing it more from a 360-degree perspective instead of just a linear, okay, well, the horizon and, you know, the curvature, and then, you know, stuff like that. Not, like I said, not saying that's wrong, just saying there's more equations out there. But the only way you can start answering and asking those questions is to come from an inside out. A lot of people don't even want to go into asking those questions about the cosmologies of the ancestors, largely from one perspective. Some of the people are caught up in religious blockages.
Let me plug this in. I just want to build on a point before you move forward. A lot of us are dealing with the dead-on scientific facts, the horizon out there. Let's argue that there's no curvature and that there's no spin. Those are two scientific provable facts that you can never lose in any debate. That beats all speculation, beliefs. This is science when we talk about the horizon, no curvature and no spin. But you say that we putting too much focus just on those parts of it, and we can spend more time dealing with the actual cosmologies of the ancient people, which took those facts, and based on those facts, they took it to another level where I think I'm trying to interpret you where we should be taking it. And that's what I'm getting out of what you're saying. Maybe we should be going past just trying to prove NASA's baloney and go past just the curvature and all of that, and just get back to what now that we know that, let's get back to what the ancients was really saying.
I was just gonna say that's when you start getting into the other side of the scale, which is the truth. You start getting into interpreting the reality, and the answers that are not going to come the so-called powers that be system. Any way that they sell any information that comes from that system will be another deception. So by limiting ourselves to the scientific, and like I was saying, I didn't mean to emphasize it as like too much. We have too much. It's not necessarily too much focus on the scientific. That's what we're used to. That's what is comfortable for us. And it's not a bad thing. Like I said, that's needed. The only thing is that we have this entire non-physical side of reality that the ancestors went into interpreting that we're largely not really focusing on because of our own blockages. And that is when you start getting into the balances of nature, those images that a lot of these flat earthers use to confirm like the dome and confirm like the plane of existence. We use those images, but largely people don't know what the hell that stuff means. People don't know. They only thing they see on there is the plane and the dome and something that represents Earth and something that represents the sun and the moon, and that's it. Everybody just says, oh, I'm done. What I'm saying is that all of that other information, all of that symbolisms, symbolism, all of those metaphors that are in the actual symbols of the cosmology are relative to the entire flat earth story. And the only way you can interpret or even start to interpreting that reality is by coming from the inside out. If you have any preconceived notions about, those were just primitive people, and that's what kind of pisses me off a lot of the times, is we have a lot of people who are coming from religious perspectives or whatever kind of other kind of perspectives about certain people or ancestors or whatever. They're real quick to use the images of the Mayan cosmology and the Inca cosmology, but won't really go into, but still consider them to be like primitive people. All these other things that we have to kind of let go of in order to expand into a higher understanding and overstanding of what's going on here.
I'm gonna say this. I do agree with the idea that we could deal with the ancestors more. And I do agree with the idea that they are not primitive people. That's one thing I drive home on my channel, that the whole concept of a caveman is a theoretical lie, because the people who dwelled in the caves were some of the most intelligent civilizations, and the oldest writing systems come out of the caves. So this whole caveman Flintstone thing, we got to re-question too. But to iterate on what you're saying, when we talk about that curvature, that proving that with scientific facts, the curvature, the no span, well, you said something that's important. You said that basically one of the problems is that we can't get a lot of these people to look into the flat earth cosmology. They see the plane, they see the arch, they're turned off. You got a lot of pictures out there of a disc floating in space. They see that, they're turned off. Like you said, we can't get a lot of people to look into it, especially diehard globe heads who think that they can prove this stuff with science and equations. So I think a lot of things start at basically those things we can prove, like that curvature ain't there and there's no spin. That's what blew me away. That's what made me look further. Once you was able to prove to me that the earth I'm standing on is not spinning, after all my years of living ever since I was born, I'm thinking I'm spinning and I'm moving and that I'm on a curved earth. And I watched one simple video in my 30s that changed all of that. So it's something that's very unique, what facts can do, what provable science can do. Everyone can argue belief. So when you start people on those facts that listen, when you reach a globe head, and I'm saying that for lack of better words, no pun intended, when you reach someone who believe in a globe, you got to deal with facts, because the fact that they believe in a globe shows you that they're in the realm of belief. They believe in a globe. So you can't deal with somebody that's under a spell of belief and try to take them away from belief with belief. So when I'm dealing with a globe head, I don't get into lands beyond Antarctica. I don't get into, the dome too much. I stay on, listen, y'all, NASA's lying to you. They getting $50 million a day to tell you that there's curvature, when I can prove it that there's not no curvature right now, with lighthouses, with the boat, with the Bedford level experiment. I can prove to you that the earth is not spinning so many different ways. And once I do that, it's undeniable proof that everything you believed is a lie. At that point, you can base your own new beliefs based on this foundation of truth. Think about this, my brother. Just say me and you are both artists, right? And we're both gonna paint some art. And the teacher hands me a clean blank sheet of paper, but they hand you some paper with some scribble on it. My art's gonna have the best interpretation of my idea than yours, because yours started off tainted. Your paper had something on it. So that scribble represents the lie that's on our consciousness, that we base our whole foundation on that lie. So when we paint the picture, it's never the picture we really intended, because just think about people who live their whole life believing a lie. What would their life have been if they known the truth? It could have been more potential out of their life, less fear, more quality. Because I tell you, if I had known a lot of this stuff at a younger age, I swear it could have done me a lot better too. But nevertheless, what I'm saying here is the basic truth anybody can have is that the earth is flat. Meaning that the creator that created the earth created an immovable foundation beneath us, and we're in a safe, habitable environment that's not chaotic, and it's created by an intelligent being. I think that truth alone, even if you don't know nothing else, that simple truth right there. Remember, when we get our beliefs based on that truth, we can't go wrong. It ain't like our beliefs based on someone else's bull crap, and it's like speculation based on speculation. You know, someone created Pinocchio. Now, I said I had a dream about Pinocchio, and Pinocchio is a savior. So I took someone else's belief and turned it into my thing. You know, no, a pure foundation, a clean canvas is a flat plane, straight plane. So part of the globe religion, the globe deception, was balling up that infinite plane and creating the globe, hiding all of that land, hiding all of that potential, and creating this ball in a void that has no foundation. It's an earth without a foundation, spinning around, wobbling recklessly. And so you have that kind of foundation when you're born. And that's like that paper with scribble over it. And you're trying to create a life experience based on this foundation of this lie. So your interpretation of the creator based on this idea of the creation that you was given is that the creator is chaotic. Even that man is smarter than the creator, because man is smart enough to build all of his buildings with a stable foundation, but the creator is so dumb. The creator created a clumsy universe from a mishap with beings floating around recklessly, no sense of direction, clashing into each other with rocks and stuff left over from previous projects, and just no foundations anywhere. Nothing is stable on foundation. So they did that for...
That's the origin of what I'm seeing is the so-called next evolutionary step of this illusory program into the transhumanism program, into the simulation theory, and so on and so forth, is that when everybody is broken down and separated from that clumsy ass God and that nothing reality, no connection coming from a big bang of nothing, being just a nothing but a different version of snot kicked out of the Big Bang into a dinosaur, into a monkey, into a caveman, and then into a human. You have no origins, you have no roots, you have meaning, you have no essence, no actual energy that's connecting you to anything actually tangible, even physically tangible, or even on the higher mind perspective of tangibility. There's nothing there. So when the illusionists have passed down all of those theories and have convinced you that those illusory theories are actually laws of your reality, that actually makes them gods. It makes them the god of your reality. So once they become the god of your reality, demigods of your reality, then they have the permission, by your allowing this to go on, they have the permission to guide your idea of evolution, or your idea of progress, even your idea of the present moment, and effectively your history. We have no understanding of what the actual history is. All the information that's hidden underneath the British Museum and all these university systems, even from my hometown, UC Berkeley hides all of the indigenous artifacts that they dig up from all these sites where they build malls and parking lots and condos and all this stuff. When they're gentrifying the neighborhoods, all these neighborhoods that are being built on and gentrified are old school indigenous and aboriginal, and sometimes even burial grounds, and all that stuff, all that information, all that energy gets hidden and locked away in underneath some museum or some university. And that information gets studied by those so-called powers that be and sold back to us in a commercial version to make us act and feel a certain way that adds to the agenda that feeds back into the system that allows them to be gods further and further and further. So this is how this system works. Just like heliocentrism sells you 20 years out in the future, SpaceX sells you Mars in 2020, SpaceX sells you Europa in 2045, it sells you planets that are habitable in 2130. They do this with the movies, like Star Trek tells you that we're going to have ships, like the first ship from the Star Trek Enterprise is going to be in 2110 or something like that. So it buys our consciousness, it steals our time. And what I was saying in the last videos, it steals effectively your higher mind, your liquid moment. It steals it, because your physical body is how you engage it in your reality, but you're the bridge between the physical and the non-physical, or the light body, your soul, is the mind of the moment and the time, that what you do with the time in your experience. That's how I'm seeing this whole soul, mind, body relationship. When all of those are locked down and separated, the roots are severed, then we get into locking ourselves into the illusion of progress, the illusion of the present moment, and the illusion of our history, and the illusion of God. So Neil deGrasse Tyson is really the God of a lot of people. Bill Nye, Michio Kaku, Ray Kurzweil, Brian Cox, Einstein, all these are actual gods for people. And when they are guiding millions of people, millions of consciousnesses to think and act a certain way, they're also manipulating them to not think and act a certain way. So that's affecting the Dr. Masaru Emoto experience, or experiments, where the water is being manipulated by the coding of the intention of the experiencer. Like putting something on the side of a water bottle will change the molecular structure of the water. The illusions of the heliocentric program, the illusions of politics, capitalism, democracy, the colonial program, all that changes the molecular structure of our, not only our physical experience, but of our higher mind engaging in this reality. And our consciousness is being guided to believe ourselves, to molecularly engage ourselves into this, not a God experience, where you believe in transhumanism as the next evolutionary step. And that's where the alchemy of Hollywood comes in, with this movie I just saw the other day, Ghost in the Shell. Because I use those, that's an alchemy to people thinking and acting a certain way. So when you watch movies like that, you can see how people are being guided into another version of believing in that kind of a God and wanting that for that reality. And that's the main point, is they limit you to the physical reality. So that's what, like, that movie is based upon in transhumanism itself. And even Bill Nye says this, it limits you to the physical reality by saying your so-called consciousness or your soul, it doesn't exist. Bill Nye actually says that. He says that there is no soul, there is no consciousness, there's only neurons firing off in the fatty tissue of your brain.
And see, that's them trying to get rid of the part of you that's infinite. That's an attempt to get rid of the eternal aspect of the human. And they've done that through all the religions, you know, to teach you that death is a place of perpetual burning. Because every human knows deep inside one thing. After these eyes close, or what we call death, we all know, we can feel it, that there's going to be some more eyes open, and we're going to witness another realm, another experience. So whoever can gain control over interpreting that experience, or in convincing you what that's going to be when you die, then they can really be God. Because if they can create where you believe your soul is going when you die, they can manipulate what your body is doing while you living. So for example, if I can convince you that I got a place called hell, then the question you're going to ask is, well, what do I have to do to stay out of hell? Now I can give you a list of my rules and you got to obey me, and it's another trap, you know, to set you up with some guidelines or commandments, or you know what I mean, a list of do's and don'ts, as opposed to listening to the consciousness that's already inside of you. Because when you're doing something wrong, you can feel it. But what happens is we get so detached from ourselves and so caught up into laws and books written by man that what he write in the books is actually evil. Pedophilia is legal. Slavery was legal in the Bible. So when you get caught up in what's good and bad based on what they're writing, it's the simulation. It's the false reality, because that's what their God is telling you is good and bad. And if their God is a pedophile, then sleeping with kids is okay, you know, in their book. So it's a trap. And the whole thing about them getting you detached from you and taking away that infinite part of you is in us is consciousness letting us know, don't do this, do that. Don't do this, do that. It's a simple yay or nay. You can feel it in your heart. When I'm getting ready to pull the trigger on this pistol, I know I'm supposed to kill this person. You actually have to harden yourself to this stuff over time to become what they call an OG, or, you know, it's nothing natural for you to be this way. So basically saying that to say that when you talk about the simulation, when you say they're trying to keep us stuck to the physical, the problem with humanity is we've been detached from the physical, detached from nature. They've done a good job of detaching us from the physical and keeping us attached to the simulation. What comes along with the evolution of the simulation is transhumanism, because robots is synthetic, is artificial intelligence. So the human has enough intelligence to create something that outthink itself. So that shows you how dumb and smart we are all at the same time, because here we are with these godlike abilities to manifest such great things, and we choose to manifest something that we perceive as greater than ourselves, which is blasphemous. We are the ultimate technology. You know what I mean? So you can worship a calculator because it can tell you 900 times 900 in a second, but you can look at the one who made the calculator. You know what I mean? What's going on with the human body in order to make something that could do that? So it goes back to the source. And when we talk about the simulation, it all starts at the cosmology, which leads us back to the very way we perceive and interact with the physical nature. You cannot have any clear belief or speculation on the spiritual at all until you get a factual foundation on the physical. And when you do that, you'll realize that what you're perceiving as the spiritual isn't separate from the physical at all. Just like ice isn't separate from steam and water isn't separate from ice. It's the same thing going through different phases. So when we die, we go through solid, liquid, gas, and right back here again to have this conversation over and over again until that which created this creation has enough information to perceive it on the highest level possible. Because the creator is a scientist that's experimenting its creation through each and every last one of us, through the tree outside, through an apple which has life, through a strawberry which you consume. The creator is actually alive and in all things. Therefore, it's the ultimate scientist experiencing the creation on all different levels. The creator is that butterfly. The creator is that tree. The creator is the water. The creator is the wind, and it experiences the creation through you, me. It's all of us. And through that, I think it's having an ultimate perception through each and every last one of us to ultimately create the best experience. I think that creation is a work in progress, and that heaven is even. Again, if the H is silent, heaven only begins to be balanced, even, ma'at. So if you shake anything up that's different elements, just like you look at the cosmos, everything will settle naturally in nature to balance itself out and reach some kind of balanced state. And I think that's what we're witnessing on all levels, is consciousness trying to figure this thing out with thought and just everything until we reach that ultimate state of balance. To summarize my whole rant, I'm just saying that the importance what we have in the flat earth community right now is to really dig the facts into their faces, because I said all that to say that when we think about the simulation that they created, that they took us away from real physical reality, they took us away from our real nature, and they got us believe in a simulation, CGI planets and all of that. But when you think about that, the only thing that can get us out of that simulation, which is created by a system of beliefs, the only thing that can get us out of that is the facts of nature, the provable facts that are in and cancel all arguments. After I give you the facts that the horizon and the no spin, then you can reject the facts, but you can't unhear the truth. You can go back to believing the lie, just like the dude in the Matrix who came out of the Matrix, but he sold his soul and went back in it. But once the truth resonate with you, you know in the mirror that that was facts what Brother Sanchez just said. Now, if I'm giving you belief, then yeah, you can dismiss that and keep it moving. Everybody have those. But when you make beliefs that's based on facts, those beliefs resonate more. You know, I can't prove a dome, but I can say that, hey, based on ancient cosmology, they say we're enclosed in a dome. And hey, when I look at a rainbow and you think about the fact that light reveals the shape of its container, it supports arc structure, and that also supports the mother as well. So it's something to look into.
Yeah, just like I was just gonna add on to that real quickly, is that like I like how you put that as far as the beliefs based upon facts. A lot of times we get afraid of using words a lot of the times, but sense like you have to have some kind of foundation. You have to have some kind of starting point. And the thing to add on to the bill on top of that, when you have facts, when you start off with a particular vibration or interpretation or understanding, then you can the bridge into a deeper fact or a deeper understanding is to at first be courageous enough to sit in that space, and that courage comes in where you start to expand upon your beliefs that sit on top of that fact. And once you're in that space of building on top of the facts with what you intuitively feel with your belief systems, that's when you actually activate a deeper knowingness. And when you activate a deeper knowingness, you're getting closer to a higher vibration of a deeper layer of facts. So once, like, for example, for me, like I started with getting out of the Army and then going into like the Occupy protest time frame, thinking that it's all about, you know, the Illuminati and the bankers and getting out on the streets and yelling to change the system, to make the system better, not ever realizing that the system was never designed for the people. The system was designed for the illusion. So at that time, I was sitting on my facts that were at the vibration, which were still facts based upon the political interpretation of my reality. Once I started to say, wait a second, this is not limited to a physical or even a psychological warfare. This is into a spiritual warfare. But in that bridge between that, I have to have first set my beliefs that there is a spirit. At that time frame, there is some kind of beyond this reality, on top of the fact that I hit a wall with the bankers, realizing and the political protest time frame, there's a wall there that's confined to a particular version of reality. And that's where I was saying that your facts can expand into a higher level of consciousness. Said once you get into a higher vibration of facts, it doesn't negate the existence of those facts. See, the facts of like the protest time frame of the bankers, they still exist. That still exists on one level, but that the experiencer itself, which is the knowingness, is what expanded, is what got into a higher seeking out of perceiving the reality. But in that bridge is going into, you have to first like center yourself, balance out, and start seeing realities from different angles. And in that transition, you're in your own belief set, you're in your own belief structure, and you're challenging your reality. The thing is, what I was saying, I'll just end it on this. When you go from the facts, you go to your beliefs based upon those facts. In that space, in that build, you're going into a knowingness. When you get into the knowingness, you actually create another platform for a deeper layer of facts. And then it constantly builds. It's you raising the vibration of your and how you experience the reality as a whole.
That's interesting as well. I think we build it on the same thing, because when we talk about beyond reality, realm of existence, so this particular reality we're tuned into the physical realm, as we call it. But one concept I want everyone to think about, keep this concept in mind of everything being everything. The fact that, like we explained previously, solid, liquid, gas, and that realms are just that. That's actually a whole gaseous realm with life forms and different interactions of these different particles that exist strictly in the gaseous realm, and you inhale it. You are breathing a gaseous form that's keeping you alive. The breath in your lungs is gas. Your body is 70% water, and you also made of solid rock and flesh, bone. So you are solid, liquid, and gas all in one being. And you also transition through all of these elements and become each element of themselves, meaning that, yes, you are made of solid, liquid, and gas right now, but you're actually gonna become pure liquid and pure gas one day. It's called transitioning, or what they call the afterlife experience. Some say it's a DMT trip upon death, the ultimate DMT trip. Maybe we have this ultimate high, or this DMT psychedelic trip when we die, and we find ourselves back into the womb of a woman. Maybe that whole DMT trip is called a trip because we go somewhere. But where do we go? Maybe we go from physical to liquid to gas, and back to liquid to solid, where we find ourselves back into the womb of a mother, or matter being formed by her flesh after that trip. Where did we come from? Another life, another realm, which lead us back where? To this realm, because this is infinity. And the symbol for it is the 8. When you think about it, it all takes place where the knot takes place. If you think of a bow and arrow, all right, and you think of the North Pole in the middle of our Earth cosmos, and the bow and arrow, the reason that the arrow can fly is because the energy is at the center of that bow and arrow. If you take an arrow and try to shoot it from the top of the bow and arrow, it won't work. You got to pull that arrow back from the center of the bow and bend it in the energy from the center. So just that's what's happening at the North Pole. It's like a bow and arrow type arch bow system, where you got the plane and some sort of arch type system represent the linear and the curve, and it's a marriage. So based on this marriage, like I said, if I tell you to jump right now, in order for you to do it, you got to go down first to go up. You got to bend your knees, So a seed got to go down into the ground to become a tree. It's the same thing. And basically what I'm saying is that we see this duat that creates the Trinity. And when we talk about solid, liquid, gas, and it relates to the afterlife journey, I believe that's what it is. That's what that trip is. You becoming from the human is the embodiment of them all. That's what makes us special, because we can tap into all of these different realms. But I don't think it's nothing beyond reality, because when we say beyond reality, we're saying beyond real, and everything is real. The spirit is composed of some sort of particle that you can actually detect from the physical realm. So nothing is separate from matter. There's no realm in my mind that's separate from that, non-detectable. You know, even when you enter these realms, you become on that level of tuned into that level where you can actually detect it. So upon death, if we become into the liquid form, we can detect certain things in this realm, or this liquid realm, or the sperm realm. You know, there's a whole liquid realm. Even when you look at the ocean, every drip of water is a cosmos, you know. So, and then you go from that, what happens to that drip of water when it becomes steam? All of the life in it basically assumes a gaseous form. And I think everything, that's what's going on, solid, liquid, gas. And this is the stage where it all meshed together to create the human, to explore them all. Because from this stage, we can manipulate gas, solid, and liquid. But what happens when you actually become gas? You can't do that. So I believe the serpent in the middle of the yin yang represents existence. And when you say existence, you're talking about that etz, or that hetz, or that bull's eye, which leads us right back here at the earth circle, you know, where we're having this conversation. I don't think we can have it in the transitioning realms, or I think this is the stage where it all happens, basically. But I'm gonna fall back and let you speak on all of that for a minute.
Yeah, I see it in the same kind of way, as where you default to, just as we default to what's comfortable to us in a conscious state. It makes sense that we would something like the physical realm based upon verse that our soul spark has chosen. So we have the solid, the liquid, and the gas, and you have the spark of the individual that actually experiences that reality, that experience. It's an ever expanding, kind of like the lotus, the ever expanding lotus, like even like from the perspective of the crown chakra, it's a constant expansion. And I would see the same thing would happen in reference to, like you're explaining earlier, or how I was hearing how you were explaining earlier, in reference to the Arctic center, the center of this reality, density being like not necessarily I was gonna say a safe zone, but it's not a safe zone. It's more of not a foundation, like a place where a tree can plant its roots. So you can have a tree that's just floating in space, but it's not going to be able to soak the nutrients of that experience unless it gets and anchors itself into a particular reality. So what's happening with the illusions of the heliocentric model and even the New Age program is they lock us into a version of reality that we think we're rooted in because we're in some version of community. The globe heads have a community. It's called Discovery Channel, National Geographic, History Channel, the mainstream media, and Planet Earth, the film with David Attenborough, you know, IMAX theaters. That's a community. It's very comfortable, but it's all based upon illusions, control, and dominance of the consciousness overall. It's an actual illusory universe. This is why they call it the university system, because these this space for us to be comfortable in and root our organic roots, our soul roots, into an illusion. So it's just like Monsanto feeding you, and then it creates seedless fruits. Or if it creates some kind of fruit, whether it's physical or non-physical, it won't be able to reproduce anything that will reproduce another seed that will be able to grow another tree. It creates dead seeds, pretty much. So we have the dead seeds of consciousness. Just we have the dead seeds of what this, how this food affects the reproductive organs. Fluoridated water affects your consciousness, your experience, your dreams, your sleep, your moment, your ability or your drive to even ask questions about the history, and your drive to even create a future that's outside of the slave mentality. So we have all of these different versions of reality that are based upon limitation and lowering our vibrations into the fear, like the image that I was sharing with you earlier of the higher vibrations and the lower vibrations. The lower vibrations are more spread out. They don't have many peaks that are going in between. Not much information in there. There's not much spike. So in reference to like a heartbeat, there's not much going on right there. You have basically, if you were to stretch that low vibrating wavelength length all the way out, you basically go to a flat line. So you become dead. That's what the mainstream media is based upon. Basically, the wavelengths of this experience based upon lower vibrations are meant to control by creating zombies or the undead. So once you spread your or anchor your reality in such a low vibration or a low wavelength, you're not really getting any gaps in your reality. And you see the gaps in the reality of the electric spark is needed in order to, like a spark plug, all of this stuff is needed in order to expand upon a particular thought, to start a motor, to start another thought. And in reference to wavelengths, like when we get spread all the way out to a wavelength that has no curvature at all, no gaps in between, no information, basically that's what that is. You're basically dead. You're a zombie. And how I was seeing it is that it's not only, it can be related to like the curves in the brain. So I was saying the curves in the brain are also like the creases in the brain are another thing, like in reference to like dolphin brains. That's how I was relating also.
Now
Go ahead.
let me plug something in that I see a lot of folks doing. Not that nothing wrong with it, but we all perceive things a bit different. One thing I've come to do instead of to get caught up into the duality, because we always got to see Ma'at, the Trinity, the T. When she spread her wings, she make the T for truth, for balance, for Trinity. What I'm saying here is when we say that, you have a flat line for death, I believe that's something we got to re-question too, because I really don't have a concept of death. I believe every time we close these eyes, just like when we go to sleep every night, that's a form of death on a microcosm level. And then the ultimate sleep would be when you finally close these eyes for good and you open completely new eyes, which will be a cosmic breath. So I believe we seeing this duat happening on so many ways and so many forms and continuums. For example, you may say that an eagle have a better quality of life than a snail or a worm in the ground based on the vibration or the frequency. For example, I don't think nothing was wrong at all with low frequency. I don't think that low frequency is synonymous with some bad until we deal with it into their realm, their low frequencies and F waves and all of that. But like the straight line to me represents infinity. If you look at the sign we use for equal, it's two straight lines. The horizon, which is straight, the line represents eternity in a masculine form, and the curve or the S represents eternity in a feminine form. It's expressing itself in different ways, but when you put them together, the Trinity happens, a birth happens, and children are born. New life happened from the curve and the straight coming together. So when you look at a bow and arrow, you will see that what's making that bow and arrow a powerful weapon is because two things. A straight line that's stiff and don't bend, that's a stick. And the curvy line, the one that bends, the string, the rope. And when you put them two together, when you bend that feminine with the straight stiff one at the middle, when the man penetrate the female, boom, bullseye, life happen, children are born. So as above, so below, we can see this, like I said, even at the North Pole, where you have this same thing acting out in the cosmology. So when we looking at your picture up here of the straight line, one is more closer because it's going faster and one is more smoother. But both of them are good. And if you bend it all the way out, you get completely straight. And that's cool. That's just another form of saying infinity. And what I'm saying here is you can't escape infinity because it stands alone. And when you put them together, it creates new observers, or like you said, the experiencer. Because the experience is infinity itself, the whole experience, the reality, the creation. But the experiencers, which is us, are needed by man and woman coming together. The straight line and the curvy line, the dome and the horizon, which is the Horus energy. That's the Horus. That's the man. That's masculine. And Kemet, when you say horizon, you're dealing with the Horus. And when you're dealing with your feminine, you got Nut, you know, or net. So that goes back to this black hole symbol where you got your straight line, but it start bending into a horn at the mouth, making a cup of the Holy Grail. That's your net, the horn net. And they say that the men get wet, we get horny. When it's time for sex, we get horny. And why? Because the woman is the one who had the horns in the sacred texts and cosmologies that they gave to the devil. They made the divine feminine to Satan, and they gave the trident, which is really the balances scales, the Trinity, the trident, they gave it to the devil. And they gave you the man without giving you the feminine. So you got Jesus, and for the feminine, you get the devil, when it's really supposed to just be yin and yang. But in a patriarchal world, the feminine is gone, the curve is gone. The patriarchs associate the curve with the snake or the woman in the Garden of Eden. Remember, when you see her, she was the one who the snake seduced, but they taking this science and corrupting it there. But basically what I'm saying, when you look at your diagram at the top here, you can look at the original goddesses in cosmology. They all mostly carried arch bows. They were later corrupted to say that they was goddesses over hunting, but hunting goes back in pre-dynastic time, and it's synonymous with the dawn of the patriarchal world, because the male hunters were like the first rock stars, overthrew the women gardeners in the Garden of Eden when we were all vegans. But I don't want to get into that right now. Basically, just to say that the feminine is missing in our cosmology, and that's why we say, you know, flat line is death. You're not seeing the balance that the masculine is part of that bow and arrow. When you put two of these together, you get the plus sign, which is the feminine. So basically, the Y chromosome is the feminine, or the X chromosome sacrificing a piece of itself, or a leg. It's breaking a leg off to create the Y. Just like the woman takes the fabric of her flesh to create the baby. The line and the curve is the yin and the yang, so to speak.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely. That's where, that's the origins of, that's the natural representation of what that is. As there's no fear of death. Yeah, there is no fear because if you fear death, then you fear life. So what I was referencing mostly is really the undead, or the zombification of being caught in limbo of the lack of understanding of both the masculine and the feminine. That's the limbo space that this system keeps people in. And this is where the whole, and this is where the like you were saying, low wavelengths are not necessarily bad. They exist. It's about what they use them for. So you are kept on an in-between low frequency, and you're not allowed to expand into a high frequency, then that's when you start getting into backwards and upside down alchemy. That's what I was referencing in reference to how these wavelengths of both consciousness and largely the physical reality and the higher mind are being manipulated to affect the entire experience out of the natural balance. Taking it a step even further, you can go into how the whole transhumanism, transsexual program is being utilized to further separate, add confusion to the consciousness and expand the separation from the masculine and from the true feminine and the true masculine. It's just another version of separating you from nature, and an expansion of that. The reason why you have the expansion of PT stuff and the transsexual stuff and the tranny information about Hollywood and politics, all this stuff is coming out at the same time with transhumanism, because if you're caught up in all of the trans versions of reality, then you have no understandings, understandings, or overstandings of the natural balances of nature and the reality as a whole. So once you're caught in that limbo space, caught in that limbo space, you have no roots and you have no energy, no active conscious or soul energy activated, because you have no roots and you have nothing to engage into your reality. That's when you can be sold into a synthetic universe. You can be sold into an artificial reality. You can be sold into thinking yourself out of the soul and thinking yourself into the fatty tissue of a brain, and giving your brain away to Bill Nye to put inside a robot body and say that this is the next evolutionary step of humanity. Out of here with all that shit. But that's not far-fetched. That's actually being sold to the masses right now. In this moment, we are being sold this trans version, this limbo state of reality, and it's not at all separated from the relationships that you have with nature, which is why this system is built on destroying nature. And when people talk about capitalism and democracy and technology and innovation and all that other stuff, and I tell them how the hell, and they tell me, well, don't you have a smartphone? And I'm like, well, first of all, no, I don't. Second of all, like, I know what you mean there. I do have a computer, but if you ask me that, I'm gonna ask you, where did the elements for that smartphone and that computer come from? What are the elements? What is all of the cobalt that is in the batteries, the gold that runs the hard drive and runs your motherboard and all that other stuff? Where did all that stuff come from? How did it get out of the earth? First of all, what is it? How did it get out of the earth? Slave labor. And how is it? See, we separate ourselves from even the storyline of what we worship as the best thing of our reality. Mm-hmm. So that's another explanation of how we are separated from nature. Even the agreement that technology is like innovation, the way it's run today, when you have slave labor in China, slave labor in Africa, slave labor all across the world, that is an inherent separation from nature. And if we continue to allow that to just expand and in fact worship these so-called scientists and these university systems that agree that this is a great thing, then that's that downward spiral in that slow limbo vibration that keeps us in negative expansion, no movement at all.
In the simulation. And that's very deep.
Yeah, in the simulation.
I'm just looking at your diagram, and when you look at high frequency, high energy light, it resembles liquid. If you look at basically the liquid state, I guess high frequency light would resemble close to the liquid state, but low frequency light would resemble close to the gaseous state. Kind of like the sun and the moon. Kind of like how they tell us Zeus is like the god of lightning and he got this thunderbolt. But if you look at the chargers, When we say a charge or electrical charge, and we think about electricity and the high frequency, when we talk about the curve, there's actually two forms of that, because you can have the angle or the curve as a U, and you can also have it as a V. So you can have that rigid angle or smooth angle. So basically saying that to say that Ra, or the sunlight, would be like that thunderbolt. The way that bright light travels is close to the high energy light, high frequency light. And basically they have the curves, but if you put them close together, that's more like electricity. And if you look at the moonlight, it's a low frequency light that's more smooth, like more the woman, the nuwa energy, or the waters, or, you know, spread out particles.
And to build on top of that, in reference to the lightning and observing nature, like we were told, like I grew up thinking that lightning came from the sky. And my latest interpretation of what lightning is that it actually comes from the ground up. So the lightning is actually being birthed from the material realm upwards, just like birthing process. So you have these sparks that are not coming down from a God that hates everybody and striking down on everything. It's actually a natural something, a natural process that's actually being birthed energetically through the material realm upwards as an electrical spark.
When we talk about the male and the masculine, and we talk about the feminine, which is the feminine, it's really deep, because, you know, the 1 and the 0 is what it boils down to. And when you look at that curve, or you look at that 0, you see the linear within that. You know, the linear is hidden within the 0 based on the radius, or the Ra. That's the horizon in the center of a circle. But say that to say that all numbers are birthed from 0, which can go into all numbers, but they start us off at 1 in our numerical system. And when we say numerical, we're going back again to new, and that's dealing with the stars above, which were the first digits that we learned the act of counting from, if you ask me. But as above, so below, we know the sky was the first university, basically saying that all things come from the divine feminine. We can agree on that. So I think part of the male species is tapping into that area of creativity within themselves. One thing about a creation, it never dies. And there's some things we create in this realm. For example, if reincarnation is real, think about it. What if I lose my life and I come back and I end up listening to Brother Sanchez videos, and I say, hey, this guy feels like me in another life. It's just something about this guy that resonate with me, not knowing I'm looking at myself in another life. And it's meant for me to take that information on and on and on, and keep reduplicating, perfecting it. Each life we meet up with this information and perfect it.
Like we were talking about, if you're too weighed down in the positive, your system isn't going to run properly. If you're too weighed down in the negative, your system isn't going to run properly. And that's what the control grid banks on, keeping people imbalanced and uprooted from every system of power, inherently natural, on the physical, the psychological, spiritual. We're separated from all of those balances of reality in order to maintain a particular vibration, a particular level of consciousness that allows people to power away to an artificial reality, a synthetic universe, a demigod that has no vested interest in your highest potential, no vested interest in your experience overall. It's only based upon parasiting off of your lack of activating that potential energy into kinetic energy. If we continue to expand upon the storylines outside of just the linear versions of the conscious reality and start tapping into Like I talk a lot about my dreams. I think we'll get a lot of information about the flat earth realm if we start to get together and start talking about the dream realm. If we get people start talking about their dreams more, we can actually, because I get a lot of information from my dreams. Every day I wake up and I have a whole section of dreams that come through, and I spend a good portion of the morning just laying there in kind of this meditative space, observing what, pulling back what I was experiencing in the dream space and seeing how that relates, like pretty much what I'm telling myself. Go
I'm
ahead.
definitely, I don't mean to cut you off, but I'm definitely gonna have you back on, and we're gonna do a whole session just on dreams. I don't disagree with that. I think that talking about dreams could be some, if to the least it can be inspiring. But the whole thing with that is we get back into things that we really can't prove, and what happens when we get those few people who comes along and they really don't have dreams, but they want to make up something because that's one of those things where, okay, brother Sanchez had a dream where he was flying over New York, so I'm gonna top that. My dream was over the Eiffel Tower. Now we just, we enter a realm where we can't prove. I wasn't sleeping with you, I wasn't in your mind. How I know you're not lying, or how I know you're not telling the truth and just spicing it up a bit. So not everyone's gonna believe your dream, even though I may do, because I trust you, you my brother. But like I said, nothing beats the facts in a
Yeah.
world that's been dreaming. We've been sleep, we've been dreaming. The dream has become a nightmare to the point where science has become a religion instead of facts. We so far from facts that the only thing can heal us, brother, it's the facts. So the flat earth is an awakening because humanity is getting something right now they hadn't had in hundreds of years, since the dark ages. Real science, provable science, not speculation, facts. Oh, we could do the speculations, the beliefs, the dreams, but when we got a movement and fire going with the facts and provable science, something that even their science can't stand up to. We know that in a court of law, nothing can win against the truth. So, in a world of lies, where the lie is so popular and the truth is what can set us free, the truth is what can be proven, we don't want to get into be lies or beliefs. Beliefs are good, they're entertaining, they're good, especially when they're
Yeah.
based on facts. But I agree with you. I got videos where I'm talking about my dreams and astral projection and all of that. But I think with the flat earth movement, what makes it so, what makes it just so the thing that's so sexy is that it's real freaking science. Finally, I never knew that science wasn't about knowing it all and creating theory upon theory to suit my little inner beliefs, but science was a verb, and you go out and prove things, and from those truths we can base beliefs. But I never knew science was a verb. It was given to me in a belief, a theoretical realm. Religion is theology, and science is theory. Theory. You can't escape the theologians in the science, in the religions. It's a bunch of beliefs, no facts. And that's what has plagued the world. So, my brother, I say that to all flat earthers. If you can make a lot of information based on those facts, debunking NASA, you're getting us closer. If anything, you're getting us closer back to $50 million a day back in our pockets, and showing everybody how we being made fools out of believing in Hollywood type space programs. So yeah, I do
To
think the facts would do that.
to add on top of that, and this is kind of how my process goes on my channel, is that, like we were talking about earlier, your beliefs that sit on top of your facts. The same thing, and then going into a knowingness, a deeper knowingness, the same thing happens in reference to my dreams, and even into interpreting the ancient ancestral cosmologies. It's the same way. Those stories might be told in reference to, from a linear perspective, from a belief system, but in reference to like dreams, how my process works is that when dreams are being interpreted, dreams are largely being presented to us as metaphors. And metaphors add depth to our reality. So I leave my facts where they lie. And when I interpret thousands of metaphors, what happens to my facts is that they get brighter, they get more vibrant, they get more deep, and they lead to deeper facts. And that's how I interpret the dreams and ancient cosmologies and ancient teachings. They actually add, it's the relationship between the yin and the yang, is that once you start interpreting how the facts can give you a deeper interpretation of the metaphors, and how the metaphors can give you a deeper interpretation of the facts, that's when you start getting into a realm where all kinds of motors and all kinds of gears start to kick into shape, and your facts become more vibrant, and your process of interpreting those facts and expanding into deeper versions of those facts start to take on a whole different world.
I totally agree with that. That was well said. I want to continue this discussion with you, and we'll talk about dreams, and we'll talk about believing versus knowing, and we'll get into the touchy subject of religion on Flat Earth. So y'all stay tuned, and we really appreciate y'all for joining us. I always love to build with this brother. Get in the description link, subscribe to his channel. Stay tuned for more of these. Give us the thumbs up. Peace and much love.